He's on the phone with us right now, Congressman Darren LaHood. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Scott. Good to be with you and your listeners today.
I've got a handful of questions here for you. Let's run through them. We'll start off, Congressman. Yesterday, the president said that he's preparing to get America open again sooner rather than later. A member of the press that has been in the White House briefing room is suspected to have coronavirus. Senator Rand Paul has tested positive for coronavirus. As the coronavirus hasn't even hit its peak yet, do you think it's a smart move for the president to think about opening America sooner rather than later?
Well, Scott, I think the president thus far has done an excellent job with preparing the country for the coronavirus. He's put together a team that is first class, from Dr. Fauci to Dr. Birx to the other medical personnel. He's gotten money out to the states, so I think he's doing everything. However, remember that we had one of the best economies in the last 25 years prior to the coronavirus, and so I think the president is eager to get the country back open. But, he put together a 15-day plan. We're on day 8 of that 15-day plan. Listen, he's anxious to get that economy back on, because that's the lifeblood of jobs and opportunities. And so, listen, I from my point of view, I think we got to continue to do everything possible to listen to our medical personnel, listen to the professionals, make sure we're protecting the public, that we're stemming the outbreak of the coronavirus. And I think in West Central Illinois, we've done an excellent job of doing that. And remember, there are different parts of this country. We are a diverse country. And so New York is much different than Nebraska, and the state of Washington is much different from Missouri. And so we got to figure out how we eventually get this country back open and get the economy roaring again and getting people back to work.
If the president says, let's say at the end, in 8 more days, the president comes out and says, okay, America, next week, America is open. And then the governor says, hey, wait a minute, Illinois, we aren't ready. Don't you think that's going to cause turmoil?
Well, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's a hypothetical, Scott. Let's wait and see what happens. I think right now is not the time for finger pointing. I think thus far, the states and the localities and the federal government have worked very, very well together in terms of getting all the protective gear out, getting masks out, respirators, face masks, surgical gowns, getting all that information and materials, most importantly, out to the different states. So let's continue to do what we're doing right now, being vigilant, keeping things closed, operating under social separation. Those things seem to be working. And maybe a week from now, 10 days from now, we can make a decision on where we're at. But thus far, I think we continue down the path we're doing. But this is not going to be forever. And I think that's the message the president had, is we got to eventually transition back to a functioning society with people working and thriving, because that's ultimately how we're going to get us back on track.
Governor Pritzker has been highly critical of the president. He ran through his requests for PPEs, masks, ventilators, et cetera, and then unveiled the actual number of those items that the state of Illinois got, and they were a fraction of what was requested. Why is this?
Well, first of all, I don't think this is the time for finger pointing by Governor Pritzker. Secondly, to date, within the last 3 weeks, Illinois has received over $24 million in federal funding directly from the federal government. Beyond that, they've received over 9,000 test kits, and I can go through the numbers. They've received over 125,000 respirators, 300,000 surgical masks, 56,000 face masks, and almost 46,000 surgical gowns. Now, that is directly from the federal government, and that is good. Now, can we do more? Absolutely. But remember, we have a third stimulus bill that the Senate is working on right now, and Democrats haven't been able to pass that in D.C. That will equal more money for the states. But I think thus far Illinois has done just fine in terms of the amount of money and materials that we've gotten. There will be more coming, but we got to get this third stimulus bill passed in the U.S. Senate, which I'm optimistic we'll be able to do this week, and then the House can vote on it probably on Thursday or Friday.
All right, well, let's talk about that package. The proposal backed by the White House and Senate Republicans would give Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin wide discretion over which companies get money and when. Democrats in Congress are saying, hold up, wait a minute. They want some guardrails around what companies can and can't do with the money once the checks are cut. Democrats argue, what's to stop an airline from using the bailout money to prevent its CEO a bonus instead of paying its workers, or prevent a major hotel chain from laying off workers while engaging in stock buybacks? Don't you think that there should be some limits put on this money?
Well, absolutely. I've been on record saying this is not going to be a corporate bailout. This is not going to go to stock buybacks. This isn't going to go to executive pay. This has to go to the workers. There are distressed companies in the country. There are entities, whether it's the airlines, whether it's the cruise industry, whether it's the hotels, whether it's the entertainment industry, that have been hurt, and hospitals are losing money because they're not doing elective surgery. So we have to have money there. Should there be oversight on those things? Absolutely. And I support that language in there that says there is no corporate bailouts. So we need to learn from the past when we had the economic meltdown in 2008, some of the things we didn't do right there. But I'm confident that we can put together a fund that can be spent in a wise way that will help prop up these businesses and, most importantly, getting people back to work. Remember, we don't want anybody to go bankrupt, any companies, small, medium-sized, or large companies. And through no fault of their own, these workers are out of work. We have to get people, our employees, back to work. I think there's a pathway to getting that done, and I look forward to, again, working with my colleagues to get that done sooner rather than later.
I would assume, like most bills involved in politics, there's a lot of nooks and crannies to it and loopholes here and there, and there's a lot of crazy language that I don't understand, and I'm the first to admit. But, you mentioned that the Democrats haven't been able to greenlight this latest bailout, this latest stimulus package. But, what I've read, it's because of this that, Senate Republicans want to give Steve Mnuchin just a green light to do as he pleases with the money and not provide any sort of, guardrails. So I think, to say that Democrats haven't been able to do it, I think Democrats are saying, well, wait a minute, let's remove that language or, add the language in that Mnuchin has to be able to not give this to a CEO as a bonus instead of paying its workers. So it's not the fact I don't think that the Democrats haven't passed it. I think they're waiting for Republicans to add in that language. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, so what I just said, I think there needs to be language in there to protect workers. However, what also we haven't talked about, Scott, is, Nancy Pelosi has now asked for a whole wish list of things in this bill. For instance, she wants portions of the new Green Deal. That has nothing to do with coronavirus. She wanted issues in there related to elections, harvest balloting on our elections. And there's a Christmas list of things that Nancy Pelosi has wanted in this bill. Let's focus on coronavirus. That should be our main impetus with what we need to do here. Let's put aside other things and focus on this. And again, I go back to what I said. This shouldn't be about corporate bailouts. This should be about getting money to employees, to workers, to getting this back. So I hope we can put aside the partisanship, the other things that have nothing to do with coronavirus and our response. I think if we do that and we focus on the American people, we can get this done.
Congressman Darren LaHood, before we let you go this morning, I just want to get your reaction. Speaking of partisanship, we've got Republicans and Democratic leaders that have just made a big, huge mistake. Richard Burr, head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, reportedly sold up to $1.7 million in stocks in separate transactions between late January and mid-February. Kelly Loeffler, a junior senator of Georgia who's married to the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. Dianne Feinstein, a California senator who also serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee. And Jim Einhoff, a senator of Oklahoma, reportedly sold off significant shares of all of their stocks, both Republicans and Democrats, prior to the big coronavirus stock drop. What is your response to that? I think Americans generally are a little leery of politicians because of activities like this.
Well, it's infuriating. It's infuriating to the public, and it should be. This is exactly what people don't like about politics, and it does not pass the smell test. There needs to be a full investigation by the ethics committee of all the people you just mentioned here, and I know there are others out there in the House too. But this is this insider information, this perception of what went on here is exactly what we need to change in politics. And listen, I want to wait and hear the responses of the individual senators on what occurred here, but it should cause us to put in, first of all, what I would tell you, Scott, is nobody should be able to make these transactions. Everybody should put their interest in a blind trust when they get to Congress and not have the ability to take perceived insider information and make money off it. It's exactly what's wrong with the system.
Congressman Darren LaHood, I appreciate your time this morning.
Great to be with you, Scott. Take care.